Now in most institutions, businesses, universities, there are, at least in the United States, there are laws to where the institution, whether it be a business, a university, has to protect anybody from anybody else's behavior that makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's kind of the key word right there. If you make somebody feel uncomfortable and they go, if it's at work and they go to HR, to your manager, he did this, it made me feel uncomfortable. You're on your way out the door because they know that women are litigious. Women will fucking sue their asses. Men won't. That your university had no fear of you suing them.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have an interview guest that barely needs an introduction, Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, a best-selling book, a New York Times bestseller. This book completely changed my life. I recommend it to all my coaching clients because especially if you have needy behavior, if you're struggling to get what you really want in life, romantically, business-wise, whatever, this book is perfect for you. I want to apologize that I have a bad audio quality from my side. So I didn't have that microphone I'm using right now. Back then, Dr. Glover uses a $400 microphone, so his audio quality will be amazing. But still, he will be talking most of the time. Don't worry too much about my sound quality. We'll be talking about modern masculinity, incels, Andrew Tate, how I got kicked out of university for communicating a sexual fantasy, so modern feminism as well. Maybe you can get some value out of this interview. Let's talk to Robert Glover right away. Welcome to a very interesting interview this evening with the legend himself, Dr. Robert Glover. Yeah, I gotta say, man.
You make me laugh.
No, but it's true. I think these days I would consider you a legend. I mean, you started a cult, really. I already met two persons that are more or less linked here directly. So Dr. Michael Parisa, he was the first guy I had a few guests.
Yeah, Michael's a good friend of mine.
He's a really cool guy. I really enjoyed my interview with him. And his workbook is also very well written, I have to say.
It is good. It is good.
Really good. And Andrew Mundy, he's a certified coach. I'm not sure if you remember him. But
I remember Andrew. I know Andrew, yeah.
Okay, so he started this Facebook group, and I'm active there too. Sometimes they have like online meetups and stuff like that. So that's a really cool chance to get together with people and talk about nice guy issues. So maybe very briefly for the people who don't know you that well, what's a nice guy exactly? And maybe tell me a bit about, because I never fully understand that. What's the difference between I'm so nice guy and I'm so bad nice guy?
Couple good questions. But for the people who aren't in my cult yet and don't know the legend, basically a nice guy, the way I define it, and this could be a man or a woman, but since the book's written towards men, that's usually how I speak of it. But it's a person that's internalized emotionally a belief system that says, I'm not okay. The technical term for that is toxic shame. And this belief gets internalized as a very young child, few weeks old, few months old, few years old, when a person experiences uncomfortable or painful experiences. They're hungry and they don't get fed. They have a dirty diaper and they don't get changed, or they get abused or violated or abandoned or neglected. I mean, almost anything that makes a child feel uncomfortable, they emotionally internalize the belief, I caused that. There's something wrong with me. I'm bad. Now, this isn't logical, but a child's brain is not working on logic. It works on emotion. So that emotional belief system becomes our emotional operating system. It's the machine language that everything else in life gets written on top of that says, I'm bad. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. So what a nice guy does with that, I mean, everybody has these kinds of early experiences as children. We don't usually remember them, but we all have them. They all internalize. So to deal with these uncomfortable feelings, every child tries to do some things to alleviate the discomfort. They do one thing, and that is they try to make themselves feel better right now. Maybe they suck their thumb. Maybe they cry, maybe they scream, maybe they sleep, maybe they become needless and wantless, maybe they do whatever they can to not feel pain. They also try to do something to prevent these painful experiences from happening again in the future. Now, again, we're talking about babies with undeveloped reasoning brains. So this is all an emotional reflex, almost like a dog. If you kick it enough, it reflexively develops mechanisms to try to soothe itself and try to avoid that painful event in the future. So all of us, we all develop these survival defense mechanisms. So for the nice guy, what happens is we grow up with this toxic shame that says, I'm bad. I cause bad things to happen. I cause mom to get angry. I cause dad to drink. I cause mom and dad yell at each other. I cause them to get divorced. Whatever. We always believe it's our fault. So for the nice guy, we then do two things. We try to become what we think other people want us to be in order to get our needs met and get love and to be taken care of. So that means we might become smart, we might become perfectionistic, or we might become a helper, or we might avoid conflict. So we try to do things that we think are necessary for people to approve of us. The other side, the second thing we do is we try to hide anything from people that we think might get a negative reaction. And the things that nice guys hide the most is their needs and wants and their sexuality. So all of that's tucked away. Now, all nice guys have that emotional paradigm. I'm not okay. I got to become good. I got to hide my, quote, badness, my perceived badness. But you mentioned that I'm so good, nice guy, and I'm so bad, nice guy. When I started really taking a deep look at nice guys, and this started because I'm a nice guy. I used to tell people, hey, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I couldn't understand why everybody didn't try to be nice like me. I thought that was, I was trying to be different from my angry father. I was trying to be different from all the bad men I heard women complain about. I was trying to be that good guy. And when I started really going to therapy and men's groups and looking at my own life paradigm, my roadmap that says, if I'm just good enough, I'll be loved, I'll be liked, I'll get my needs met, and I'll be popular, and I won't have any problems. Well, that wasn't working so well in my mid-30s. So my wife basically said, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You're mean to me. You hurt me. You're passive aggressive. I'd rather be married to a jerk, because at least a jerk's a jerk all the time. No surprises. She said, you need to go get help. And I thought, well, you're the one who's angry all the time, moody all the time, never wants to have sex anymore, never happy. I never do good enough, but I'm the one that needs help. And she was right. I needed help because I was that nice guy operating. And we're going to maybe talk in a minute about covert contracts. If I just give enough, I'll get back what I want. And I was passive aggressive. And I didn't even know what that meant. I said, you're passive aggressive. I already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy, but I still don't know what passive aggressiveness was. But it's an indirectly expressed anger. And the other thing that I'd do, I'd let stuff build up for a long time. It'd build up, and I'd ruminate about it. I'd spin about it. I'd practice these, rants that, I wanted to deliver in my head. And then finally something had happened and I would just puke it all out. My ex-wife called those victim pukes. And sometimes when it was all said and done, she said, how long has that been bothering you? I said, I don't know, 6 months or so. She said, you never thought to maybe just mention it to me? And I go, no, actually, it never crossed my mind. I assumed if I mentioned it to you, you'd get mad at me. Mm-hmm. So I'd keep all that in. So I did. I went to a men's group. I got into therapy, started really discovering a lot of things about my own nice guy patterns, where they came from, how they manifested, how I could start doing things differently. Now, I was a marriage and family therapist, as I said. So men were coming to see me, some individually, some with their wives or girlfriends. But I started hearing this common theme. I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I pay all the bills. I do everything to make her happy. I give. It's never enough. When's it going to be my turn? She never wants to have sex anymore. I thought, wow, I can finish these guys' sentences. So I started my first No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group, quickly started a second. We originally met every other week, and I just started writing some things to give to the guys that I was discovering about me. And as I started paying more attention to these other men and their nice guy patterns, I started noticing some familiar patterns. But one thing that kind of confused me at first, I thought maybe every nice guy was just like me, that had the same combination of maybe angry or distant or unavailable father, controlling, dependent, needy mother. And that is pretty common, but not everybody has that exact pattern. But I thought maybe everybody was like me, thought, I'm so good. Why doesn't everybody just see what a great guy I am? Now, what I started recognizing that there were guys that identified as nice guys, but they didn't think they were so good inside. And they thought, oh, I'm a real fuck up. It's only a matter of time till people see that and see how bad I am, see the toxic shame. So I started realizing there were two, when it comes to the toxic shame, there's two kinds of nice guys. I'm the I'm so good nice guy. And what I did is I put my shame in such an airtight compartment deep in my emotional primitive brain that I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't sense, oh, I'm terrible. If people find that out, they're not going to love me. I just operate as if it's true. But I'm thinking, I'm so good. People should always like me. People should always treat me well. People should always appreciate me. And I couldn't see my own shame. I remember, again, when I was married to my second wife, she was reading a book to me one night in bed by John Bradshaw. I think probably Healing the Shame That Binds Us, or one of John Bradshaw's books. And she's reading to me about shame. She goes, this is you. This is you. You know, this deep sense of inadequacy and not good enough. And I'm listening to it. And I go, that doesn't sound like me. That sounds like you. You're the one that hates yourself. You're the one that's never happy. And I'm listening to that. And again, I had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. I'd never heard of toxic shame. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't even grasp what it meant. And so that later on, as I began working on me, it took me a long time to really get to my own shame because I had it so locked down, so tight, out of view, deep in the shadows. But what these other guys that just thought, oh, it's only a matter of time till everybody finds out I'm a loser, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough in bed, whatever. These are what I came to call the I'm so bad nice guys. And usually what happened with these guys at a very early age, they started acting out in some way. Maybe they had ADD and they didn't do well in school. Maybe they got hooked on drugs or alcohol, started smoking pot at an early age or drinking at an early age. Maybe they discovered porn and started, obsessing and obsessively looking at porn at an early age. Maybe they dropped out of school. Maybe they became a full-blown addict. Yeah, I think we must be hitting close to home with I'm so bad. So what happens is these guys, their shame is right in front of them all the time. I'm a drunk. I'm stupid. I'm this, I'm that. And it's just right there all the time. Now, at some point, I probably began as a baby, 3 weeks old, with that shame of just compacting it and hiding it. They've been carrying it with them, for all their adult life because of all these things, get kicked out of school, being a rebel, fighting with their parents, whatever. But then something happens. They either I got to straighten or they get sober. I got to straighten my life out. So they work at straightening their life out and they try to become a nice guy and treat everybody well and do everything right. But they believe, oh, it's only going to be like a matter of seconds. If I let people get close to me, they're going to see how messed up I really am inside. So I'm so good, nice guy. I'm a good guy. Why can't everybody see how good I am? I'm so bad, nice guy. I'm a terrible human being. And my only hope is to try to be good enough that I'll get some love and get my needs met. So they're working from the same core issue, toxic shame. It's just that one of them has buried it and the other one lives in it all the time. So there's a I'm so good, I'm so bad nice guy.
Yeah, I think I'm so bad nice guy because
yeah, I saw your reaction. Oh, okay, that one hit home.
No, because when I was a kid, I don't know, early on, I took a knife in school and I went to a bicycle and I just cut the wheel, right? And I nearly got kicked out of schools and things like that.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and later, as you said, I made the decision to become good, to focus on school, make good grades, and
be like this perfect guy. Whenever I went to like a family event, I always wanted to present myself in a manner that other people would say like, oh, that's so good. You're doing so well in school and stuff like that. And you really think you're such a great person, but really, as you often say in your book, you're just like extremely dishonest. So most of the things I did when I was alone, like a lot of these things, I thought if people find that out about me, like I would have to commit suicide or something like that, right? And so that's the really scary part about your book as well, right? When you take these things that you want to hide so badly and then you put it on the table, that's like a dying moment. Just like really feels like a part of you dies because you have this persona that you put on, and that just goes to waste because then you're not the good guy, right? You have to really look at the shit, and that's the most interesting part. So my question here is now, what do you think about today? Because I'm a relatively young guy. I'm like 25. And when I read your book, you said something about like extreme feminism and you grew up during that time. Do you think times are better today for men or are they worse?
My opinion is I think it's gotten harder for men in many ways. For example, I get a lot of moms that say, "Oh, my son, my 12-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 17-year-old's turning into a nice guy. What can I do? He lets his girlfriend walk all over him, or he doesn't ever say no to anybody, or he's not happy." And my intention, it's interesting you bring this up because I'm in the process of kind of mapping out. I want to do a 5-book series for young men about applying nice guy principles to life, starting at a young age. And the books are going to go starting on this young man's 11th birthday, 13th birthday, 15th birthday, 17th, and 19th birthday. And I was reading something the other day. I was reading an article about Starbucks, of all things, and how they're having kind of a big revolt with their baristas. And the Howard Schultz, the founder of it, became their CEO again for a year to try to go figure this out. And he took great offense at these baristas wanting to create a union. So he went around and started meeting with them. And he met with a group in Texas, in a little town of, I think it's pronounced Uvalde, where a young guy, I think, killed 19 people in school 6 months, a year ago. And I was crying as I was reading about these baristas helping the families. Everybody knew everybody in this little town. And, you can't look on the news without seeing some young man shooting something up, shooting up a school, shooting up something. And they're hurting and they're rageful. Now, there's a mental illness element. And when somebody thinks it's a good idea to go shoot a bunch of people, but they're lost. They're alone. They don't know how to get their needs met. Whether we're talking about incels or MGTOW or just guys that have no clue of how to connect and how to connect with women or how to have a girlfriend or how to get laid. And then if they go on the internet, all they see is all this anger and all this hatred and all this us against them. And then there's this, and then the school system, the schools, at least in the United States, or where I grew up and where my son and stepson grew up, they're not built to help boys learn. They're built to help girls learn. Girls that can sit still and be cooperative and raise their hand. Boys that are up and down and moving around and have a lot of energy. They're getting kicked out of school. They drop out of school. So boys are really taking a blow, and more boys grow up in single parent homes. One big difference in your generation is when I was interviewing a lot of guys, I'm 66. And so even my son's older than you are. He's 37. When I was when I was working with a lot of guys, when I started writing this book 25 years ago, a lot of the guys identified their fathers were either angry or absent or addicted or they're divorced. Nowadays, I hear a lot of young men saying, "Oh, my dad is a nice guy. He tried to be nice, and his rule for us was don't upset your mother." Yeah, he was walking on eggshells with my mom. I hit home on some of these. Now I hear a lot. Yeah. My dad was a nice guy. He showed me how to be a nice guy.
Exactly. So in my case, 100%, my dad is a nice guy. Like I can't tell you how many times I heard from my dad that he said things like, "Don't say this to your mother," right?
Don't upset your mom. Yeah.
Always the same shit. And obviously, then if you learn this from your first male role model, you have a problem when you enter the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like especially all men in this culture, whether it's like the no one is nice guy thing, if it's pickup, if it's red pill, I don't know. Most of these guys have a problematic relationship with their dad. So I think if you can eliminate that, if you can eliminate this toxic relationship to your dad, or better, you form a healthy relationship from the beginning, that would be a crazy world we would live in, right? I couldn't imagine how things would go in that scenario.
Well, and that's a lot of where I see my work moving as I continue to do my own nice guy work, and as I continue to work with nice guys. Like I said, I see myself moving more and more to helping younger men. But that crazy world you talk about is how the world used to be when we were tribal as humans. And so we're talking about 1.5 million, 2 million years, our human ancestors, 200,000, 250,000 for Homo sapiens. We were tribal. We were hunters and gatherers. We moved, we hunted, we fought other tribes, but everybody took care of everybody. And the wise men, the men who'd learned to hunt, who'd learned to battle, who learned to live life, at adolescence, always took the young boys and they initiated them. There's always some kind of initiation that showed the boys that they could feel overwhelming fear, life-threatening fear. And they teach them the skills for handling these difficult situations and teach them to emotionally handle it. And then they became one of the tribe, one of the men of the tribe, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. That hasn't happened for the last, few thousand years. Now, maybe we had apprentices, which is kind of the same thing, the men teaching the young boys how to do a trade. And for a few thousand years, we had extended family. Most boys grew up around their grandfather, their father, uncles, cousins. They were around other men. But now as we went from an extended family to nuclear family, to often single parent family, often with just the mother, and the dad may or may not be there, or he may be a nice guy. Boys for 100 or so or more years have gotten no initiation, no training from men of how to be men, how to exist in the scary world of the masculine, how to challenge yourself, how to face your fears, how to live with passion, how to relate to women, how to make your needs a priority, how to have good boundaries, how to be a leader. Boys are not learning that. So what happens is my terminology is most men for the last few generations, going back to maybe Generation X, millennials, grow up in what I call the nursery. They've grown up with constant internet, constant television, easy access to alcohol, to pot, to pornography. And so most young men, that's their initiation into manhood. Instant gratification on the internet, porn, masturbation. They can get alcohol and pot easily. They play nonstop video games, search the internet, watch YouTube, get on social media, try to get liked. And in all of this, they don't learn the life skills they need to get out and get their needs met. To live with passion, to have purpose, to have the kind of job and career they want, to have the kind of relationships with other men they want, to have the relationships with women they want. They just don't learn it because nobody's teaching them. And when you don't get taught, you go looking on the internet for information. And you mentioned the red pill and the pickup. Most of that has an antagonistic view of women. They're out to get us, so we got to get them first. Go get what you want from them and then get out. And that's not making things better, because statistics show, I've read some statistics about the United States, this is about the last couple of years. For the first time in recorded history, since they've been keeping track, over 50% of all men 35 and younger report themselves as being single, being not in a relationship. Not just a single guy, with a lot of women, but not in a relationship. Over half of young men are not in a relationship. Another study I saw that something like over half of all men 21 and under report not having had sex in the last year.
Yeah.
Now, I tell you what, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds should be having a lot of sex, right? But with our hookup culture, with, swipe right apps, pick up boot camps, constant pornography, everybody's single these days. Nobody's getting laid and nobody's in a relationship, and guys are just getting angrier and angrier and angrier with no resources.
The thing is also, so I got kicked out of places because I did things like asking a woman for a phone number, right? And that's like the world we live in now. And I think that's really sad, because what you do culturally, you raise weak men, because some guys, they do this like a couple of times and then they get punished for it, for like correct behavior. And then they say, well, fuck it, I'm going to masturbate 3 times a day on pornography instead of risking my job or something like that. And
I call that safe sex. Safe sex is where you actually don't involve another human being with it. You just, you go jerk off to porn. It's safe. You don't risk rejection. You don't risk looking foolish. You actually don't risk getting into a relationship and getting hurt or feeling awkward or not knowing what to do, because most men don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to ask you as well, I wanted to ask you this since like a year, actually. So I tried to get to you a year ago or something, but you ignored my message. But I always get what I want, so I texted again.
Yeah, and that was funny, because I was looking at our email thread, just this morning before we got on the call. I thought, oh, you first reached out to me like over a year and a half ago. We're just now talking today. I thought, good, that's persistence.
No, because like, at that time, I finished, that was the beginning of the last year. I finished my studies at university, and I read your book. I read Jordan Peterson's book, Mark Manson's books, and they all have kind of the same message, right? Face your fears, like tell what you want to hide and things like that. And I was working with my professor's wife in the laboratory at that time, and I thought she's incredibly hot, right? So back then, I was single for a long time, didn't have sex for like 4 years, so I was super horny, and I masturbated like every evening while fantasizing about her, like a sick obsession. Yeah, and I was like, okay, so these guys are telling me this is the thing I want to hide most, to go to her and tell her that. And I, like, for 5 days, I was like, no, I cannot do it. Like, I felt this fear was like really like life threatening, right? So it actually felt like I had to go into war or something. Mm-hmm. And then I sat down with her and said, like, okay, fuck it. I communicated it actually quite dishonestly. So I did like a smooth version. So I said, look, I've been reading these books and they tell me to tell the truth. So I'm really embarrassed, but I had a fantasy about sleeping with you. But I would never do it because you're married, and I think that's morally incorrect and whatever. So next day, got kicked out of the university because they said like sexual harassment, blah, blah.
Okay.
And goodbye. And I had a huge shitstorm from people, really, like so many people telling me it's like sexual harassment. So what do you think about that? Do you think if you communicate it in a smooth manner, that's just telling the truth, or do you think it's sexual harassment?
Okay. The way you tell it, no, I don't think it was sexual harassment based on what you're sharing about it. But here's the deal. I mean, there's so many factors in this, so many factors. One I've already mentioned. As young men, we're not trained. We're not trained how to interact, and we're not trained what to do with our libido and our sex drive. And here's another factor is that dating and hooking up and trying to, that's not in our human DNA. I mean, if you think about it, if we lived in communal tribes for, 1.5 million years where everybody had access to everybody sexually, Mother Nature likes that. Mother Nature likes lots of penises and lots of vaginas. It creates for genetic diversity. Everybody always laughs at that, but it's true. One penis and one vagina for life, does not make Mother Nature happy. It just doesn't. But we're talking about evolution and what's healthy for the species. Now, because of that, our ancestors never had to date. And then even when we come in about the last 10,000 years or so, where we quit being nomadic and quit being hunters and gatherers, and we just settled down and owned stuff. We owned property. We owned a cow. We owned a tree. We owned our spouses. We owned our children. That's the whole patriarchy, where it's an ownership model of life and relationship. But even then, people got into a relationship purely for economic reasons. It just made sense to survive, to get with somebody and have kids. It wasn't for love. It survived. And usually most of these marriages were arranged by family and by clan. Even in the East today, a lot of marriages are still arranged. And so even so for our grandparents, for example, maybe our own parents, they often married, somebody they knew from school, from church. Back then, like we had a big party at our house this weekend. My stepdaughter turned 15. So a lot of my wife's family came, and she's got 9 brothers and sisters, actually 8 now, one's dead. And at least 2 of her brothers married originally girls that were her friends when she was a kid. So that's another way people met. You just met, your brother or sister's, friends. And so dating did not exist. Dating's only existed maybe 50, 60, 70 years. So it's not in our DNA. And I'm told that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet to show the total, utter ridiculousness of romantic love. Oh, we love each other so much, let's kill ourselves. So an actual, how do I interact with the opposite sex is not in our human DNA. And if we're not being trained by our fathers, and if we're growing up in a social environment, which is another part of this layer. I mean, the feminism I grew up in the 60s was pretty radical. And it's like, every man's a rapist. An erection's a sign of aggression. Woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Gloria Steinem, who said that, married a very rich guy after saying that. But back then, a man talking to a woman or asking her out wasn't considered harassment. It was just asking her out. And again, nobody had the skills to do it well. Maybe a few people developed it, but most people didn't. But now in most institutions, businesses, universities, there are, at least in the United States, there are laws to where the institution, whether it be a business, a university, has to protect anybody from anybody else's behavior that makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's kind of the key word right there. If you make somebody feel uncomfortable and they go, if it's at work and they go to HR, to your manager, he did this, it made me feel uncomfortable. You're on your way out the door, because they know that women are litigious. Women will fucking sue their asses. Men won't. That your university had no fear of you suing them for inappropriate behavior, but they knew the professor's wife would. So, for example, if men started standing up and suing these institutions for being kicked out for not doing anything that is truly invasive or inappropriate, maybe you could have used better judgment who you approached and talked to. But that's not something you get kicked out of school or get kicked out of a job for. You just presented, hey, I had a sexual fantasy about you. But it may be that in your university, mentioning the word sex to another person is a form of harassment. I don't know. I mean, this stuff gets written like that because it's all about, quote, protecting the women. The whole hashtag Me Too movement is all about, quote, protecting the women. And I get that women do get abused and do get violated. But when we have this, institution, especially social media, that just, any woman can say, yeah, me too. I was attacked. I was this, I was that. He made me feel uncomfortable. What that happens. And again, yes, that happens. But what happens with men is men just shut down even more. I won't do that again. I won't ever tell another woman again, I think she's pretty, or I think she's attractive, or I think she's hot, or I want to ask her out, or I want to sleep with her. I mean, you mentioned Mark Manson earlier. In his book Models, he talks about going out with a buddy, and his buddy would tell all these women, hey, I want to pee in your ass. And, that was his thing, and it worked. He got laid a lot. And it probably better not to do that at work, and probably better not to do that in a university setting. They were kind of the nightclubs, so it was a different setting. But how are we going to learn this stuff? Okay. So what happens is people like you, that happens. I'm sure it made you bitter. I'm sure it made you angry. I'm sure it made you confused. And then where are we going to go get information? The internet, from other bitter, angry, confused men that just are lashing out and railing against all women. And all that's doing is it's creating more antagonism. I mean, women are doing their side of it. They're hashtag Me Too, radical feminism. I read an article the other day where in a feminist online magazine where a woman wrote an article about Jordan Peterson crying on a show with Piers Morgan. Is that his name?
Yep.
And she said the two most despicable men in the entire universe got together. Wait a minute. The two most despicable men, Piers Morgan and Jordan Peterson. Maybe Putin and Mark Zuckerberg might be actually the two most despicable men on the entire planet. But not Jordan. I don't know Piers Morgan, but Jordan Peterson, not a despicable human being. And he cried. How pathetic. I'm thinking, all right. There's the feminist and women group out there. All men are bad. Everything toxic masculine. All men are evil. Every man's a rapist. That's been going on since I was a teenager. That noise is still out there. But, I think, unfortunately, we men have gone to those same kind of extremes, the same kind of negativity towards all women, putting all women in that group, making them all evil, all gold diggers, all out to get us. And again, red pill and pickup especially, dwells on that.
No, it's actually the same as a masculine version of feminism. You just do the same thing, just as the opposite. So you say women are evil, men are the victims. So it's the
same thing. I agree with you. It's the same thing, and it's not solving anything. So it's one reason I'm not a big fan of feminism, at least that radical version that all men are bad and terrible. And I'm not a big fan of all that whole red pill side of things that all women are terrible. They're all out to get us. Use them in whatever way you can use them, but don't get used by them. I'm thinking, how's that serving us?
What do you think about Andrew Tate, the most popular man of the planet in the world? You say, I have to ask this. So
I bumped into his name, about a month or two ago. Somebody mentioned him kind of in positive ways. And I thought, well, I don't even know who this is. Number one, I'm not on social media. I'm not a fan of social media. I do post things on YouTube, but I'm not on social media. So I don't follow all of that. But so I looked up who he is. And what struck me is, apparently he's an amazing marketer. Apparently, he's kind of at the extreme of that masculine edge of stuff. Here's how we use women. Here's how we hustle. What he has is Hustle Academy or Hustle University or something like that, Hustlers University. And basically, it looks like it could be a scam that, he takes advantage of young men. But what I got in my kind of just casual research about him, and again, I don't know that much about him, is that he really influences a lot of young men. And again, I'm not sure that's the model of influence that, when you're 12, 14, 16, 17 years old, you can't distinguish. Is this really good information? Is this helpful information? Is this going to serve me? Or is this going to, just take me down this other pathway that, that just leads to one disaster after another because they can't see coming. And who are they going to talk to? Their mothers? Again, most young men don't have a man they can talk to get good information from. And again, what I'll bring this back to, I don't think the whole feminism that, all men are toxic, all men are rapists, all men are evil, that's not serving us. The whole, red pill, incel, MGTOW, even a lot of pickup, all women are this, all women are that, that's not helping us either. I really think what has to happen is men, me, and I'm so happy. Believe me, even though I think things have gotten worse since I started working with men in the last 25 to 30 years, I'm also optimistic because when I started my quote, nice guy recovery work, I didn't know that's what it was. I just, like I said, my second wife just said, you got to go get help or I'm leaving you. That was my work. I had to go figure out how to make her happy so she wouldn't leave me.
So it was
luckily,
codependent work.
It was codependent work, but I landed in a 12-step group where I started revealing my shame. I got in a men's group. I got into therapy and I started working with other men. But when I started, there wasn't that much out there. There was like Robert Bly's Iron John, the mythopoetic movement. We go out in the woods, pound a drum, have a talking stick, go ho. And I did some of that, but there wasn't that much out there. Nowadays, if you go on the internet, there's, I said there's more men's coaches than you can swing a dead cat at. There's men coaches everywhere. And, I get interviewed a lot by men like you. A lot of really good men out there helping men, building programs, coaching. And I'm in a men's program. I have been for the last 5 years with a man that has studied with David Tate for the last 15 or more years. I'm still working on me, but I do it in the context of men. So the good news for me, why I'm optimistic, even though I don't think we're in the best place, the world isn't in the best place between this gender war or whatever's going on. I'm optimistic because I think there's hope. I see women's programs where the women are working at becoming more conscious, more open, more loving, more of a healing muse to men. Not just seeing men as evil. And I see more and more men getting into coaching and programs to help them be more conscious. And what I've been saying for a while, when I did my book tour for No More Mr. Nice Guy 20 years ago, I did a lot of interviews, TV, radio, newspaper, and a lot of reporters said, Robert, do you see a worldwide men's movement coming? And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's one unifying factor to bring men together. The only one I could really see at that time was divorced dads, and they're trying to get their rights to be involved in their kids' life. But I was right and I was wrong. I don't know that there is a unified men's movement, but I was wrong in that what I'm seeing is that men are looking for something. Now, they don't know what they're looking for. So maybe they go looking for it in martial arts. Maybe they go looking for it in a 12-step program. Maybe they go looking for it in a men's divorce recovery group at their church. Maybe a Bible study at church. Maybe they go looking for it in coaching with a man's coach. Maybe they go looking for it in pickup. But what they're looking for, they might think, well, I'm looking to get over my divorce. I'm looking to learn how to meet women. I'm learning how to protect myself. Or what they're really looking for is tribe and initiation. What's happening is now men are finding their tribes, whether, again, it might be in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it might be in pickup, it might be over here. And what they're often finding is, I really like the time spent with men. I like going out and being with my brothers. I like protecting each other, loving each other, having fun with each other. And then that often leads to initiation into more tribes. Maybe they find, a coach teaching consciousness or teaching yoga or teaching, non-orgasmic, semen retention. Or maybe, there's so much out there that men are beginning to find resources that gives them both tribe and masculine initiation. That's why I'm optimistic, even though I think, our world's not in very pretty shape right now, but I think there's so much potential for us to swing the other direction. I think it is swinging the other direction, where I think things are getting better. Now, what's going to happen is things start getting better. The fringes, the fringe feminism, fringe, male stuff over here, they're actually going to feel threatened. Right? Wait a minute. We don't get to wallow in all this, hatred towards the, opposite gender, opposite sex, opposite whatever. And they're going to double down. They will. Watch as men, because you can even start seeing this. I've always considered myself somewhat liberal. So I'd read like New York Times, listen to NPR, liberal sources. But what's happening now is even those sources are going on outright attack against men's groups. So, for example, when they do a story about, these men's groups, the white nationalists that were involved in Trump's January 6th attack on the Capitol in U.S., these articles start now bringing in other men's consciousness groups and like putting them all in the same category. That this is all, anything that's masculine empowerment is leading to that kind of stuff. So that's the fringe saying, wait a minute, something's happening. Men are getting educated. They're getting more conscious. They're getting more empowered. And all of a sudden, that's making people anxious. No, we like the old narrative. All men are bad. We like the old narrative. All women are bad. But when it starts changing and men and women start working together for the betterment of everybody, the fringes are going to feel threatened and they're going to double down on their message. Watch that. It's already happening.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women also don't really like this feminism narrative. So my girlfriend, for example, she hates feminism just like me, so we have a common ground there. But yeah, and that was actually funny. When I met her, I applied actually a lot that I learned from you. So I did the complete opposite route. So when I met her, first of all, I learned that from Mark Manson. I escalated physically very, very quickly, right?
Yeah.
So we were like kissing after maybe like 2 minutes. And then I said to her, look, I just got kicked out of university. I'm broke, no job, living with my mom. I'm really like not the best guy really to choose. And her eyes went like wider and wider and wider because she loved honesty, right? So
yeah, she loved honesty.
Exactly. And you could feel the emotional connection that just created. And I think a lot of women are
you could have said to her, I want to pee in your ass, you know. Again, that was more of a joke than anything in Mark's book. But what it is, you brought such honesty. Now, you know, I've been a marriage therapist for over 30 years. And so, you know, I've listened to a lot of women talk about what makes them unhappy in relationship and with men. And I mean, believe me, I have empathy for what we men put women through. And one of the things I tell guys, most women can handle a difficult truth. They just can't handle being lied to. They just don't, they can't handle these games and you know, leaving stuff out or making up stories. So yeah, you tell her the truth of who you are and where you're at. Number one, she thinks that guy's honest. He's already a big step ahead of all the other guys I've been with that have been lying to me to try to get in my pants. He's honest. I can have faith in him. I can trust him. I know he'll tell me the difficult truths. And for most women, that just lights them up to know that you'll tell them the difficult truth. That gives them a sense of security and well-being. And what they also see is the potential in you. All right, he got kicked out of university. He's broke, lives in his mom's basement. I love telling people, when I go visit my mother up in Seattle, and I have an office and a bedroom in her basement, and I love people. Where you at, Robert? I'm in my mother's basement. You know, I love saying that, but you know, she lives in like a $2 million home overlooking a lake, you know, that she bought for nothing when I was, you know, a teenager. So, but I love saying that. Live in my mom. I'm in my mom's basement right now. So, but if women see a man like that, they'll go. But women love potential. I'm making generalizations, but they see a man with potential, they'll go, oh, I see what direction this man's going, and I want to climb on that. As David Tate would say, I want to climb on that train and go that direction because that makes me feel secure.
But if we're at this point, because that is an interesting thing as well. So when I went into a relationship with her, the thing was before I met her, I'm a nice guy, so I had trouble expressing my sexuality, talking about it. And I continued working on the stuff when I was in a relationship with her. But now I had to talk about things that involved her as well, right?
Sure.
And she has a lot of shame feelings like any human being about sexuality as well. And a lot of times, so like a couple of days ago, for example, I went to the neighbors. I told them kind of like the Mark Manson stories. I was like, isn't that weird? Like I'm in my bedroom with my girlfriend and my tongue is like 2 centimeters away from her asshole. And you just like one wall between us. But it's just like everything is normal, but it's like a completely different world. And well, after that, obviously I told her, I talked about that with her neighbors, and now she hasn't been really talking with me for like 3 to 4 days. But I think she will watch this interview. So
she was embarrassed. Yeah, you. So here's the thing about us men.
Yeah,
I'm a big believer, you know, and I teach this in my dating programs. I'm a big believer in acting on impulse and blurting, not holding back. Be you. You know, and if a woman likes the you that you are, you know, hey, you know, I just got kicked out of university. You know, I'm poor. You know, I live in my mom's house. You know, that's you, and you're okay with you. I often say that women are amazingly attracted to a man who's comfortable in his own skin, looks like he knows where he's going, and he's having a good time getting there. Whenever I say that, like with women coaches, they all go, yeah. Women are drawn to that kind of, you know, okay, I know where I'm going. I'm comfortable in my own skin. Now, here's the deal. because I practice what I preach. I tend to blurt quite a bit. When I do interviews, I never know where they're going to go. I mean, my interviewers always say, well, how long is the interview going to last? Well, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I go, no, it'll go longer. They always do. My interviews always go longer. I guess I like to talk, but I don't hold back. And a message I get from a lot of people, my clients, people that listen to my interviews and that do my courses, they say, Robert, I like your authenticity. I like that you're real, that you just put it out there. You don't whitewash anything. And I say 30 years ago, nobody would have accused me of being authentic. I was that guy. I was the chameleon trying to figure out how to do everything right, make everybody happy. Now, here's the deal. If you're being you, if you're being your authentic self and you're not holding anything back, you're going to say and do some stupid stuff. I do. There's some things I think, oh, fuck me. I think I shouldn't have said that one. That was a little bit over the line. But I'm also pretty good at taking ownership of it. And, and for example, I've had like a lot of guys, I've had concerns that, okay, I say a lot of stuff in interviews about men, about women, about feminism, about red pill, about this, about sex, about that. And, almost any interview I do, you could probably take a bunch of 30-second snippets, take them completely out of context, and make me look like a terrible, human being that's teaching terrible things. Now, I don't believe I am. I believe I'm teaching my truth. I keep growing. I keep evolving. I keep learning new things. But, I've had that fear. Whoa, what if I get canceled? What if they come after me? What if this? What if that? And I thought, well, really, if anybody ever wants to, start writing or saying terrible things about me, I could say, hey, come sit down with me. I'll actually give you more. I'll tell you more terrible things I've said and done, and you can print and publish those as well. Because you know what? I've said some dumb stuff. I've done some dumb stuff. One of the dumbest things I did, this maybe put you to rest. I was a minister in an earlier lifetime. I have 2 degrees in religion. I grew up in fundamental Christian church. And I remember I got fired from my first minister's job. Why? The second job I had as a minister, I resigned mainly because I had an affair with a member of my congregation. Now, I was probably 30 at that time. So I was a young guy. And, I'm not proud of that, but I did it and I talk about it and I've let go of the shame of it. But here's the thing I did. This woman who was very attractive, who I had the affair with, who became my second wife. I married her. She was married. I was married. She was a member of my congregation. She came to me for counseling. She says, I'm really depressed. I'm unhappy in my marriage. And I did kind of the same thing you did. I'd already been thinking about her. And I said, I can't counsel with you because I'm already really attracted to you and it just wouldn't be appropriate. And then I gave her a hug. And I later on thought, I just gave her all the information she needed to pursue. And she did. She pursued me. And I thought, oh, this beautiful woman likes me. I'd never done anything like that. I was a complete naive, babe in the woods. I'm not saying it was her fault. I got to take responsibility for it, but it was a dumbass thing to do. It broke up my marriage. My son was only 2 at the time. I left my career as a minister. Now, I'm grateful for where I am in life. So therefore, I'm grateful for every mistake I've made, because every mistake I've made, along with all my successes, have brought me to where I am today. And really what I teach the most, what I teach the best are my fuck ups. I tell guys, No More Mr. Nice Guy is not a chronicle of my successes. It's a record of my fuck ups. It's me finding out what doesn't work well the hard way. And I'm a big believer in that. And I'm also a big believer in let's learn from other people's fuck ups. We don't have to make the same mistakes. And so we can learn. So yeah, maybe other people listening to what you and I are talking about might say, okay, there are certain contexts where probably it's not the best idea to go tell a woman you're attracted to her. All right. Maybe we learn from that. Maybe somebody else will learn from the mistakes you and I made. So you know what? Let's keep making our mistakes. Let's keep being authentic. Let's keep learning. Let's keep owning them. And again, I teach from my mistakes. I tell people, everything I teach is what I've struggled with. It's what I've bumbled my way through. I had a PhD in marriage and family therapy at 29 years old. I'm on my third marriage. And you know what? I bumbled my way through every relationship. Why? Because they're not in our human DNA, number one. We're trying to do something we're not wired to do. But okay, it's a powerful learning opportunity. Everything in life that we struggle with is a chance to learn. It's a chance to go to school.
So, but you also said that hookups are not in our DNA. So what is it? It's like a mix of hookups and relationships. What's
in our DNA? If we want to just go what's in our DNA is being in a tribe, is being in a group of people, 35 to maybe 200 people at the most. There's a reason, for example, that you can only remember so many names. Our minds can only remember so many names. That's an evolutionary dynamic. That's because our tribes only had so many people. So our evolutionary mind was stretched. And back then, probably nobody had names anyway. But so even names are kind of a recent part of our evolutionary history. That's why we don't remember them. So here we are thinking, I should remember everybody's name. But we don't, and then we feel like there's something wrong with me. Well, I should be able to do a relationship. I should be able to get a girlfriend. I should be able to have a successful marriage. I should be able to have great sex. Well, it's not in our DNA, just like remembering names isn't in our DNA. So what is in our DNA is to live in a small group where we all work together. The men get out and hunt and gather and fight. The women kind of huddle together, talk, raise the kids, take care of the people that are more vulnerable. We come back, we bring back some food, we feed them, everybody fucks, everybody goes to sleep, we get up and do it again the next day. That's how the human race expanded and is what it is today because of that evolutionary dynamic. So if we were to create, what's normal in our DNA is we would go live in a commune with a whole bunch of people and everybody had open access to everybody sexually. That would become, and that's why people keep trying to recreate that kind of dynamic. There's a normalcy to it. Okay. But that's not going to happen. In the culture we live in, we still have this idea, you're going to meet the perfect person for you. You're both going to be available. You're both going to fall in love. You're both going to live happily ever after. That doesn't happen. No, if we get lucky enough to meet somebody that we like hanging out with and they like hanging out with us, and we actually then kind of get to know each other well enough to enjoy each other's company, and then we start having sex, and now that we're having sex, we don't ever want to break up because we don't want to lose that, and even if we don't think they're the best person for us, and as a man and a woman trying to get along with each other in close proximity with different agendas, different desires, different emotional makeup, and it's just not built to work. That's why divorce is so high. It's why there's so many single people. It's why religion was created to try to make people, get married and stay married. And, even teaching us that it's sin if we can't do it, but people still can't seem to do it. It's not in our DNA. But here's the good news. I'm a big believer that if we approach anything consciously, especially difficult things. Okay, so let's say I'm speaking purely from a heterosexual sense here, but all the gay men I know have the same problems. All the lesbian women I know have the same problems that we heterosexuals have, is that, we might be attracted to our partner, might love them, might desire them, and they drive us crazy. They drive us crazy. You get two gay men together, they're going to drive each other crazy. You get two lesbians together, they're going to drive each other crazy. You get a man and a woman together, we're going to drive each other crazy. Okay. But if we approach this consciously with good support systems and good tools, we treat it as what I call a powerful personal growth machine. And I borrowed that concept from a guy named Dr. David Snarch, who wrote the book Passionate Marriage. And my wife and I mean, if I were to make a list of everything I was looking for when I met her in my late 50s, she wouldn't have checked anything off. And it would, I met her walking down the street here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, when she said, "Hola, senor, want a massage?" And I said, "No, not today," in Spanish. Kept walking. I thought, yeah, I liked her voice. My buddy said, "Robert, you need to pay more attention to your emotional responses, not just your intellectual responses." Okay, I'm going to go back, get a massage. We're going to have our 6th wedding anniversary next month. Okay. All right. She's Mexican. Doesn't speak English. I didn't speak much Spanish when I met her. You know, I had basically restaurant Spanish. She's 22 years younger than me. 2 young kids. My stepdaughter just turned 15 this week. My granddaughter turned 16 in 3 days. So, and my wife has a 17-year-old. So my stepkids and grandkid are all the same, all a year apart from each other. My wife dropped out of high school at 15 to go to work. Grew up 8 out of 10 kids, poverty in Guadalajara, Mexico. I grew up in, a suburb of Seattle, white bread, good education, had a PhD, as I said, by the time I was 29. We were as different as we can be. She's as tough. She's a tough cookie. I'm the easygoing, try to make everything work out kind of guy. She loves to fight. I love peace. She loves to drink and party. Let's go to bed early. We're as different as we could be. And I'm so fucking in love with this woman. And she's such an amazing human being. And she's been through so much in life. And she's loving and generous. I think she has a higher IQ than I do. She's a quick learner. She can get anything done. And you know what? She just loves me to death, treats me like gold. And, I just want to bless her life. So if I thought, this is going to work, I would have been crazy to think it's going to work. But why it works is that we're both committed. We're committed to take every difficulty, every challenge we have, and to use it as a growth opportunity. That's why I joined a men's program. She has a therapist. We both have good friends we can turn to. We both like to read. We both communicate well. And so this is beyond difficult what she and I've created to try to make work. And you know what? I've never been happier. My life's never been more abundant. We had probably 30 people in our home, 100 people the night before at a big celebration for my stepdaughter's 15th birthday. Big deal here in Mexico, quinceañera, where they just throw a giant party for the 15-year-old girls. And, and my wife managed all of that. We're surrounded with just family and friends and love. And you know what? It's not easy. We struggle. We fight. We misunderstand each other. But we're committed to using it as an opportunity to grow. So I'm a big fan of that. Let's not look for easy. Let's look for the challenge and say, I'm all in, and get all in and see what I can learn from it. So that's what I teach from.
I have one more business question for you. So
business question. All right.
Business question. So you said, I watched part of your course, Nice Guy Rot in Middle Management.
Yeah.
And you said you became a digital nomad. Before it was like the millennial thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But previously you said you're not on social media. So I wonder how that's possible, how you can be location independent without being online.
I'm good. Oh, I'm online. I just, no, well, here's the deal. People will say to me, Robert, you're so lucky. You live in a beautiful place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. It's sunny. You have this, great, amazing young wife, and you get to do what you love, and you're changing the world. You're so lucky. And I always look at them and go, no luck involved. Now, there was lots of luck, but you know what? I worked hard to get my education. It wasn't handed to me, and I graduated with no debt. I worked hard. And I worked hard to write a book. Write No More Mr. Nice Guy took 7 years. It took 3 years to find a publisher. And I've been promoting it ever since. I'm still promoting it 20-something years later, talking to you. I've worked hard to go from my local business, private practice near Seattle, Washington, because I wanted to live in Mexico. I had to start moving things I did to the internet long before any other therapist was using it. I had a mailing list. Long before therapists had mailing lists. I started doing things on Skype 20 years ago, with people around the world who were starting to find my book. So that helped a lot. My book really gave me that visibility. I mean, I get countless emails every week of guys saying, Robert, your book changed my life. So I have a lot of visibility. If you Google No More Mr. Nice Guy, if you Google Robert Glover, I've got like the top 10 spaces out there. So that's really how it spread, because word of mouth, people telling other people about my book, dad's giving it to sons, sons giving it to dads, wives giving it to husbands, exes giving it to exes, 12-step groups, therapists are recommending it. I do a lot of these interviews now. These have just been, probably the last 7-8 years where, started doing a lot of these interviews. But I decided I wanted to live in Mexico. So I just kept building an online practice. Again, only people living in, like in Mexico, where they call them expats. They're usually people running away from, child support payments, tax, IRS payments, tax payments. So they go to Mexico to try to escape. I just wanted to live here because I love the culture, the music, the food, the sunshine, the ocean. And so I just worked my ass off. And I got lucky in a lot of ways, but I'm a big believer in that saying. It's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Cool. Now, in terms of my social media stuff, I'm mainly, as you notice, I put Mark Zuckerberg up there along with Putin as the two most despicable men on planet. Probably that's going to come back and bite me on the ass somehow.
You're on Facebook and Instagram.
I'm not on Facebook or Instagram, and I unfortunately I do have to use WhatsApp some because that's what my wife uses to communicate. When Zuckerberg bought it for $18.5 billion, he bought a company that makes no money. Right. WhatsApp makes no money, but it has 1 billion people on it. That's a lot of data. He said he wouldn't steal the data until he did start stealing the data. I think he's a despicable human being that's causing great harm in our planet, and he's looking to cause even greater harm. When we all go meta and where we can't distinguish anything from reality, from make-believe and fantasy, I don't think we're moving in a good direction. Anyway, that's my personal philosophy. So I don't like... It just, social media does much more damage than good, in my opinion, as an opinion. All right. So I don't use it. Like I said, YouTube is the only social media that I use. And there's a lot of junk on YouTube as well, but there's good stuff there as well. But anyway, without going too far down that rabbit hole, How did I become a digital nomad? I worked my fucking ass off, and I still do. Like I said, I'm 66. Most people, Robert, are you retired? You live in Mexico? No. I just, this last year I committed to, I'm in for another 20 years. I got work to do to change this world. I'm in it for another 20 years. And, I'm not slowing down. So how do you get to where you want to be? You have a goal, you focus, you stay focused, you work your ass off, and you say yes to every opportunity that you can to do your work. And that's how I did it.
By the way, inspired by your course. So I'm looking for clients in terms of men's and dating coachings as well. So if you have somebody you cannot take up, you there
you go. Good hustle. I'm a big believer in hustle.
Yeah. So that would be a great help. And actually, I watched your course and I was like, I'm going to do an interview with this guy anyhow. So like, it's not going to cost me to ask him. So yeah, here we go.
I love it. Just like, even though got you kicked out of university, you went for it, right? You got bold and you went for it. And, you went for it with me. Be bold, go for it, and just learn from the mistakes along the way.
I didn't regret this for a second because it also taught me, like, look, it might have been controversial what I said, but it was the truth. And it showed me to some degree that it is my fault, like entirely. Sure, I have my part in it. But also the universities, their house is full of pussies. I'm sorry, they cancel biologists for saying that there are two genders because some people get offended.
I know. You're preaching to the choir.
On the third day, I talked to a woman who was 50, and it was obvious she wasn't that age. And at that time, COVID was a big deal, and you could go get a COVID vaccination if you're 50 and over. So I asked her, how old are you? She got hugely offended and said, you have to say sorry, and that's hugely offensive. It was in France. And she said, you cannot ask French women for their age, and you have to apologize. I was like, no, I'm not going to apologize. Like, if you have an insecurity about your age, that's your problem. Like, I'm not doing this shit. And that was, and 2 days later, I talked to that wife of my professor and then, blew the nuclear bomb. But,
and you're still alive and ticking.
Yeah, I don't regret it, and it's always a fun story to tell. Most people laugh about it, you know. I think 80% of the cases you're lucky and nothing happens, and 20% of the cases you're fucked. And
here's the deal, you know, in that course that you're watching, the nice guys don't finish last; they rot in middle management. I say in that course, and again, I just, you know, there's a lot of information in there, not just about work and career. You've seen that, just about life. And one of the things I say is, he who dies with the most stories wins. And one person said, Robert, that sounds like there's, you know, this competitive thing. I don't know. You're taking me out of context. What I'm saying is that a good life is a life that you have a lot of stories to tell. And I promise you, my best stories are from my fuck ups. They really are, you know, and not stuff that I did wrong necessarily, but stuff that just didn't go right or didn't turn out like I would have wanted. Man, they're the best stories. They're just the best. And I love telling stories. And if you don't get out there and take a few risks and make yourself vulnerable, you know, get out of your comfort zone, you're going to have no good stories to tell.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and because you say vulnerable, I think that's a situation where I really learned what vulnerability is, because vulnerability today, a lot of people think it's just like crying and saying that you're sad. But no, like vulnerability means you can actually be hurt. You put yourself into a situation.
Yeah, you can get hurt. Exactly.
Where you can be hurt, like socially, you get socially excluded or whatever. So that was just a learning experience in that direction, that if you take that risk, if you make yourself vulnerable, there are like real consequences to it. And that's exactly what happened. So really just a big learning experience in that direction.
I've never known of anybody that made a big impact on the world by playing it safe. No, nobody ever changed the world by playing it safe.
And as well, the world is not a safe place. And even if you go this conservative route, it's not so safe either. Like you can still get fired. You who knows if you're gonna have a position forever. There's no safe route. Really.
There's no safety. No, that's you know, when we're dead, then everything will be secure. You know, right now, you know, the life is just a fucking adventure. It just, you know, who knows? One of my mantras is, I love waking up in the morning, not knowing how my day's going to end. And, you know, like this weekend, good example of that. Saturday night with my 15-year-old daughter's big party with 100 people at it, rented facility, live music, just great times. And then last night having basically 20, 25 drunk people in my house all day yesterday, my wife's family and a bunch of her friends just drinking nonstop. It's kind of like, oh, there was drama, there was meltdowns, there's people leaving butt hurt, people, you know, it was a mess. But you know what? More good stories, more good stories to tell.
I'm glad I'm not the only one where we're having family dynamics like that. We had an event yesterday. My brother had his birthday, and we had some family here. But it wasn't really that hardcore because I was really passive as well, so I didn't drop like super hardcore stuff.
So you learn, choose your moments. Not every moment. You know, and that's what I'm learning. As I teach men like to blurt, act on impulse, but you also learn through trial and error, you know, appropriateness to choose your times. But that doesn't mean you play it safe or get risk adverse. You just realize, all right, there's some, like for example, I teach a course I call Positive Emotional Tension. And the basic premise is that women in general need to feel emotional tension. You know, they need to feel that buzz in their body to be attracted to a man, have sexual arousal for him, and stay attached to him. But the other premise is we men tend to hate emotional tension. We don't, especially in a relationship. No, we want everything smooth, locked down, no drama. You know, find out quickly, does she like me? Does she want to be with me? I don't want the drama. Even our sporting events and that are our main source of drama for men have a clock on them, right? They have a stopping time to them. And so we don't like a lot of emotional tension. All right. So men flock to that course. Oh, I want to learn how to, you know, connect with women, make them want to be with me. It's a whole, you know, the pickup of mindset of, teach me the tricks that'll make women want to take their clothes off. I don't approach it that way, but that's what men are looking for. And men will say, Robert, how can I practice positive emotional tension? PET, I call it, at work. And I go, you don't. You don't interact with women at work in a way that's trying to create emotional tension. You're going to get your ass handed to you. And again, some woman, like, just has to say, he made me uncomfortable. And you're walking out, they're going to take your badge from you and you're stuff in a box. You're getting escorted by security out of the place. So you don't go trying to create positive emotional tension with women at work. Even if it's a woman from work who wants to go out and have drinks with you after work, you still don't fucking do it, because all she has to do is the next day go back and tell the boss, tell your manager, he made me uncomfortable. And, she might have been the one that, wanted to go out and have drinks, and you go do it. Okay. I tell people, don't shit where you eat. If you want your job, if you want your degree, it's probably better that there's certain things you don't do in those environments. But that's the trial and error that we have to learn sometimes the hard way.
So you would say it's not a good idea to like ask women out in the workplace and things?
No. The statement I'm about to make will probably get me in trouble as well. Yeah. I tell men, don't even talk to women at work. Now I'm joking. I hope when somebody clips that and puts it out there, they include the part that says, I'm joking, but I'm making a point. Men are not very good at distinguishing appropriateness. We're just not. We haven't been trained.
I don't know, man. I disagree on that, because it's kind of what you say with that is that you should play it safe with the workplace, right? So
no. I don't play it safe. I just say don't hit on women in the workplace, because.
But why? Because you could get kicked out of the job or something.
If you value your job, if you don't give a fuck about your job, go ahead. But here's the thing. If you give a fuck about future jobs, guess what? That record goes with you to future jobs. They said, he got fired for cause. He got fired for acting sexually inappropriate in the workplace. Now, again, if you want to just go, if you can be an entrepreneur, you have more freedom to do what you want. All I'm saying is we learn parameters of appropriate behavior. Just like, for example, in the workplace, would you just pull your pants down and take a shit in the middle of your workplace?
Obviously not.
Obviously not. There's appropriateness. We go use the bathroom, All I'm saying is, again, this is kind of a Jordan Peterson mindset. We do need to learn social appropriateness. Now, within that social appropriateness, I'm also a big fan of, okay, but let's be vulnerable. Let's risk. Let's take chances. That's okay. And even telling, in a club, a woman you want to pee in her butt, you can do that in a club, but probably you shouldn't do it at work. That's my opinion. I'm just offering it up as an opinion, but especially if you like your job.
But you also say like that nice guys are, how did you say this? They're a chameleon, right? They behave like this in this group. Yeah. They behave like this in this group, which is social appropriateness, right? That's what you learn when you grow up. You're this with your peers, you're this with the football team, you're this with the guys, you're this when you're talking to women. So when you go to the work and you behave differently than a nightclub, well, okay, to some degree, obviously you're not going to go to work and stand around or whatever, but you're also kind of a chameleon, no? So
there's a difference between unconscious behavior and conscious behavior. Okay. Unconscious behaviors when we're like in those old patterns that were handed to us in childhood, and we're operating that way, like I was as an unrecovered nice guy. Unconscious behavior. Now, I still acted out and acted inappropriately while trying to be this nice guy. Then there's conscious behavior. And for example, you might consciously decide, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to really take a risk on something. That's conscious. And even within that conscious behavior, there are still certain decision-making factors that go in that are all just part of our learning experience in life. And in some situations, you go, all right, that probably wasn't. Oh, getting a little feedback. That wasn't the best situation to do that. But okay, let's learn from it. We don't need to have a toxic shame spin about it. But the difference is being conscious. So, for example, again, I rarely associate with women. Now, when I was single, of course, I did spend more time around women, but I rarely associate with women because in my life, I don't see a lot of value added from that. And so, but it's a conscious decision, right? If I want to, I can. I just don't. So we make conscious decisions about what adds the most value to our life. And, for example, again, if you love your job and it gives you a great opportunity, I'd say do whatever you can to take good care of that. And I promise you, There's plenty of other places to meet. Like I said, I met my wife walking down the street in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So there's plenty of places to meet women and to do that. And again, I'm not saying do it this way or that way, but here's the deal. We men, kind of going back to that emotional tension thing, we want a schematic. We want a diagram that says, do it this way in this situation. Don't do it that way in that situation. All I'm trying to say, there's certain contexts we can learn, okay, in this context, I can go for it. In this context, there's a certain amount of restraint I'm going to use. Okay. It's not black and white, but if we can learn that life just goes better, if we can kind of make those decisions better. And again, that's just what we learn to do. I'm 66. I'm still learning from my mistakes, and I hope I keep making them so I can keep learning from them. And I keep okay, all right. Last night when all the drunk people were in my house, I kind of went off on them at one point. Everybody was just, we had like 8 cases of beer. I made a giant pitcher of margaritas. There's all the alcohol left over from the party Saturday night. And these people just drinking nonstop, beer bottles everywhere, bottle caps everywhere, garbage everywhere, food everywhere. And, I'm picking it up, it's my home, it's my yard, it's my garden, it's my pool. I'm just trying to, and people are just, and finally I stopped. I said, listen, everybody, I said, this isn't a bar. This is my house. I want you to treat my house, my wife with respect. Put your beer bottles back in the case when you're done. Throw the caps in the garbage, not on the floor. And my wife says later, Robert, it's just Mexican culture. That's just the way how we are. Everything just gets left and everybody thinks someone else will pick it up. So my wife and I talked this morning about it. I kind of went off on her family and friends. It's all her people. And I said, it's not a fucking bar. I said, you're a bunch of drunks. Let's have a little respect. And, some got butt hurt. There was already a lot of other drama going on. But my wife and I talked. Next time, we'll either have a waiter or a bartender that manages those things. So guess what? What I learned from last night, I learned, okay, that's my fault that I didn't have better organization if I'm going to give a lot of free alcohol to a bunch of alcoholic Mexicans. All right. That's my fault. That's on me. Next time I'll do it differently. So see, I learned from that. I still fucked up. I don't feel bad about what I did. I stood up for me, my wife, my home, my family, and some of them may never come back. That's fine. But I learned something from it. I'll do it better next time. So hopefully we keep learning how to do it better.
Sure. All right, Robert. It's 9:30 in Germany, so I still need to get some dinner. But it was really interesting talking to you, also to get your feedback on the shit I did. And yeah, I will have some reflection about it. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation as well.
This was so much. As you notice, I have fun doing this. And I love your sincerity. I love, again, it was my fuck ups early on that started changing my life around to go in a better direction. And I love that you own everything and you don't feel shame about it. In fact, kind of getting kicked out of university like the way you did will make you a hero, right? So, so run with it, wave that flag, but also take what you learn from it and teach other people how to be clear, how to be vulnerable, and how to take chances in a way that have the most likelihood of helping them get what they want. And you and I are going to keep working on this shit with all the men out there who need some good, strong male voices. So thank you for this invitation. For sure. Yes. And thanks, Ian, because you really inspired me to do all of this like men's work. And I think without having you as a role model, probably wouldn't have done it. So thanks for that as well. Thank you for sharing that. I like knowing that. So let's keep changing the world, man. Let's put a dent in the universe. For sure.